Hello guys, welcome back to my channel Siti Ainur-Rahmah. For the first, the Honorable my lecturer Muhammad Figh Hasbi MAG as my lecturer in Fiqh study subject, and all of my friends, I hope all of you are in good condition. So I'm Siti Ainur-Rahmah from International Class Program Islamic Education, and now I'm in my third semester, and today I'm gonna tell you about the classification of Ijtihad and Mujtahid. So happy watching! For the first, we will talk about classification of Ijtihad. So there are several opinions of ushul fiqh scholars regarding the division of Ijtihad. Mahdi Fadhl-Allah divides Ijtihad into two parts, including the first is Ijtihad Mutlaq and the second is Ijtihad Juz'i. For the first, we will talk about Ijtihad Mutlaq. So, Ijtihad Mutlaq, namely Ijtihad that covers all legal issues. Ulama or scholars who have this ability are called Mujtahid Mutlaq. The four Mujtahid prized or Imam Maliki, Imam Syafi'i, Imam Hambali, and also Imam Hanafi are Mujtahid Mutlaq, whose Ijtihad is still widely used today. That's because after these four prize or Imam, it can be said that no one else has the ability to perform Ijtihad Mutlaq. And the second is Ijtihad Juz'i or partial Ijtihad. So, Ijtihad Juz'i, namely an in-depth study or certain parts of the law and not exploring other parts. And the ulama or the scholars who have this ability are called Mujtahid Juz'i. And the next, Muhammad Abu Zahrah in his book divides Ijtihad into two parts. The first is Ijtihad Istinbati. So, Ijtihad Istinbati, namely Ijtihad activities that try to explore and find the law from predetermined arguments. This term is actually not much different from the term Ijtihad Mutlaq, or also called plenary Ijtihad. And the second is Ijtihad Tatbiqi. So, Ijtihad Tatbiqi, namely Ijtihad activities that seek to apply the law found by the previous Mujtahid Imam to events that arise later. According to Ibn Subki, Ijtihad Tatbiqi is divided into two. Among others, the first is Takhrij al-Ahkam, which is to determine the law of a new event by relating it to the law that had been said by the previous Mujtahid Imam or price. The condition for the new event is that it has a proportionate legal event that has been determined by the previous Mujtahid Imam or price. And the next is Tarjih, so which is an attempt to find clarity as a guide in the future for the followers of a Mujtahid Imam or price by selecting and sorting out which one is the strongest from the various opinions that develop among Mujtahid scholars to be followed and implemented. Shatibi divides Ijtihad into two parts. The first is Ijtihad Mu'tabar and the second is Ijtihad Ghairu Mu'tabar. The first is Ijtihad Mu'tabar. So, Ijtihad Mu'tabar, namely Ijtihad which can be seen as a legal discovery. Generally, it is Ijtihad produced by one or more experts. And the second is Ijtihad Ghairu Mu'tabar. Ijtihad Ghairu Mu'tabar, namely Ijtihad that cannot be seen as a way of finding the law. Ijtihad in this form is carried out by people who do not have the ability to Ijtihad based on the conditions specified and agreed upon. And in terms of implementation, Ijtihad has two forms. The first is Ijtihad Fardi or individual Ijtihad. So, Ijtihad Fardi or individual Ijtihad, namely Ijtihad where only one person performs this Ijtihad. So, this Ijtihad can be carried out by every Muslim if the problem that is the object of Ijtihad is simple and occurs in a simple society. On the other hand, if the problems encountered require studies from various disciplines, then the only mujtahid who may carry out ijtihad, whose knowledge can cover all fields of law. And the second is ijtihad jama'i or collective ijtihad. So, ijtihad jama'i or collective ijtihad, namely ijtihad that is carried out together. For example, to determine the law on test tube babies. Although it is done collectively, the result of this ijtihad is not the same as ijma or ulama's agreement because it is only on a local scale. And the next we will talk about classification of mujtahid. So in the literature on usul figh, theoretically mujtahid criteria can be classified into 4 levels. The first is mujtahid mutlak or absolute mujtahid. So mujtahid mutlak or absolute mujtahid are people who are able to relate the law to a problem directly and independently from Al-Quran and also Al-Hadith through macro-deductive normative reasoning. If he does not find the legal source in the Al-Quran and Hadith, then he will use all methods of ijtihad such as analogi or qiyas, istihsan, maslahah mursalah, and other methods. They perform ijtihad using their own method, not following someone else's. Among the scholars who fall into this category from among the tabi'in are Sa'id bin al-Musayyab and al-Nahai. So, Ibnu Salah defines this mujtahid mutlak or absolute mujtahid as he is an independent mujtahid in producing laws based on syara arguments without being taqlid and bound by any madhab. And mujtahid mutlak is also called mujtahid mustaqil. Mustaqil means independent. So, its name because this mujtahid pioneered his own rules which were used to build a madhab that was different from the existing ones. So it can be stated that the mujtahid at this level has all the tools for ijtihad. And the next is Mujtahid Madzhab. So Al-Nawawi said that Mujtahid mutlak were considered non-existent for a long period of time, so that the fatwa of Mujtahid born after this period were considered to be always tied to the call of the Imam of the madhab they follow. These mujtahids are divided into 2 types. The first is Mujtahid Muntasib. So Mujtahid Muntasib is a mujtahid who justifies the law from the syara arguments, where he is seen by to follow an imam of a madhab and use the rules suggested by his imam. However, these mujtahids are independent from their imams or prices because he ijtihad in many ways on the issue of furu'. The second is Mujtahid al-Takhrij. So, Mujtahid al-Takhrij is a mujtahid who follows one of the imams or prices of the madhab in terms of suggestion and furu', but the ijtihad in interpreting the laws of the Sharia on issues that are not in his imam's text with the Tahrij method text and rules that come from the imam. And the next is Mujtahid Tarjih. So Mujtahid Tarjih is a mujtahid who is in charge of the furu' of the madhab, the opinions of the imam or price, and the opinions of the clergy of the madhab. Mujtahid Tarjih have the ability to strengthen one opinion against another, whether it is the opinion of the price of the madhab or the opinion of the scholars of the madhab when they find conflict with each other by using the Tarjih method. And the next is Mujtahid Fatwa. So Mujtahid Fatwa is someone who has mastered a certain madhab, understand various explanations and problems studied in that madhab, and also narrates the opinions of that madhab. However, he is less able to determine the strength of the arguments and the selection of qiyas. In terms of capability, this mujtahid is one level below the Mujtahid Tarjih. The activities of Ijtihad, Mujtahid Tarjih, and Mujtahid Fatwa seem to only select various opinions or authentic history. So there is an assessment that these 2 levels of Mujtahid are classified as muqallid. However, their efforts to interpret and take steps to find the law on a problem are part of the Ijtihad activity. And that's it all from me about the classification of Ijtihad and Mujtahid. Thank you so much guys for subscribe my channel, share this video, and like the video also. And I'm sorry if there are any mistake. I hope you enjoy this video and have a nice day. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.